Hi there, I'm Amanda and welcome to Amanda Dabbles. If you're new here, I'm going to go ahead and link my channel intro video so you get a sense of what I'm doing in this channel. Otherwise, welcome back and let's jump into today's video. So I am going to be trying to take my channel logo, which I drew myself, and turning it into a vector. I originally drew this logo in Procreate on the iPad, which I absolutely love. It is a great app. It is a wonderful tool, but one problem with it is that it's pixel-based. And the fact that it is a pixel-based graphic design software instead of a vector-based graphic design software is annoying when you try to repurpose an image that you created in Procreate and you want to do something with it. So for example, what I want to do with it is I want to try to turn that into a mug using my Cricut machine. That will hopefully be a later video coming soon. And when I go to take my logo and put it in other softwares, it gets all blurry and pixelated on the edges of the words that the letters that I created, the Amanda Dabbles letters. And that's really frustrating. And this is not a unique problem. I think a lot of people have this beef with Procreate, but I wanted to go ahead and try to take what I made, which again, my Amanda Dabbles words, I drew those letters myself, and I want to try to turn them into a vector. So the benefits of vectors is that they don't have that constraint of the pixels that make them up and how those pixels come together and how many pixels there are and how big the image is, etc. So when you try to use vectors in different ways, SVG format images, they don't have that pixelation problem. I'm going to use a few tools to do this on the iPad today. Procreate, Adobe Capture, and Affinity Designer are the tools that I'm going to be using. So jumping into Procreate, I drew this on a pretty big canvas. I feel like this has quite a few pixels and it looks pretty clean from here. But again, if I zoom in, you can see the pixelation that I'm talking about on the edges, which is very annoying. I know that it being black is important. So I'm gonna duplicate the layer, putting it on alpha lock, and then I'm just coloring it in black. Get that ready. And now I'm going to share. I'm going to go ahead and save this PNG file, I think. I don't know if it really matters too much. And now that is all that I'm going to be doing in Procreate today. So let's go over to Adobe Capture now. You can see I already started attempting this and then didn't finish and decided that I wanted to make a video out of this because I think it's kind of an interesting problem that I'm trying to solve here. All right, so I just pulled in the image for my camera roll, and now I'm trying to figure out what setting I want to bring this in. I don't know if I want to just go all the way up, and that looks pretty good. We can try it. And then maybe try smoothing it. Yeah, I think that looks decent with the smoothing, but you can see that there are some things that changed a little bit. So for example, the S and the E, those are two things that are not how I originally made them. Everything else looks pretty good, I think. All right, I'm gonna press save, and I'm just gonna save it as Amanda Dabbles logo. Trying to make it into an SVG, press save. All right, now that I have that saved from Adobe Capture, I'm gonna go ahead and share, export as SVG, and open it in Affinity Designer. So the reason I decided to use Affinity Designer instead of Adobe Illustrator is mostly the price difference, especially for someone like me who isn't doing a lot of graphic design. I think if you are, it can definitely be worth it. But for my purposes, I think Affinity Designer maybe had a free trial. I don't think I've paid for it yet, but I think when you do pay for it, it's a one-time cost versus Adobe, everything has moved to a subscription model. Even if I only did it for 1 month or something, I just would not get enough use out of it. But I think that Affinity Designer and Illustrator have very similar capabilities from my understanding. So I don't think I'm missing out too much. All right, so I'm zooming in and you can already see what I'm talking about with the fact that there's no pixelation, and this is amazing. So Adobe went ahead and turned this into an SVG that we could work with. And honestly, I probably could have left it there. I probably could have just said, you know what, it looks pretty good. I turned on the smoothing and it smoothed everything out the way that I wanted it to. But these last two letters, I think, are my main problem with the way that Adobe automatically turned it into a vector with the smoothing. So I want to use Affinity Designer to edit the vector. And this is a little bit of a learning curve for me because I haven't worked with these types of Adobe, Illustrator or this Affinity Designer, like those kinds of vector-based programs before. So it's definitely we're learning together here. Okay, so I think that I need to create maybe I need to create another point here, and I think I can do that with the pencil. I'm not really sure exactly how this works. I just undid that because it's not what I wanted to do. I want to sculpt my, oh boy. I'm trying to just draw it across, like straight across the way that I intended for it to be. But gosh, that was messy. My hand is really shaky. I think if I just go like this, it will get the gist of what I'm trying to do. But gosh, look at all those extra points. Oh my goodness. Maybe I should try the stabilizer. Window stabilizer, rope stabilizer. Let's see. Ooh, that's nice. Okay, let's try with the stabilizer. This is so funky. This is so different from Procreate. I want to try to... Okay, this is looking more promising, and now I want to edit my nodes here. I think I don't need this extra one. Can I delete it? Okay. I think I just want this one. And so looking at the top here, I think that there are these like different types of nodes you can have. So you can have like a sharp edge, a round, U-shaped node. I think I want this one to be sharp. And then I want it to ease into this next one roundedly. Okay, this is looking reasonable. Don't want this to be in so far. Okay, this is not looking absolutely terrible. I'm pleasantly surprised for my first attempt using a tool like this. Okay, I think that's looking okay, but it's a little bit thin and a little bit, this part is a little bit, there was a bit of a hiccup there that I saw. Okay, let's move this up a bit. And And that should be straight. Okay. I think it's hard to kind of get the curve exactly how you want it. I wonder if there's an easier way to try to do that. So sadly, my camera died again. I will talk a little bit more about that at the very end of the video as I'm wrapping up, but I did decide to go ahead and just do a quick voiceover while I was editing. So that's what is happening here. Not in my usual filming spot. I'm looking a little bit scruffier than usual, but thank you for your patience with me. So I'm just going to talk through a sped up version of what I did. It was starting to look a little bit more promising as I figured out how to use the node tool and select the nodes that I wanted to change, use the lines on either side of the node to tweak the shape of the curves, the corners, etc. So I was starting to get the hang of it, and I applied a lot of those learnings that I made here as I continued to refine the E. And at this point, I thought it was looking pretty good, but I realized that a lot of the edges were rounded, whereas I originally drew them as straight. But I decided that I was just going to leave it for the most part. There were a few that I decided to tweak a little bit, but on the whole, when they got brought into Adobe Capture, they got rounded, and I didn't want to fight that whole battle. I did edit the A a little bit, and then I decided I didn't want to redo that same A multiple times. So I just copied and pasted the changes that I made on that one A, and I replaced the other A's. And to make it really easy to tell which one I was getting rid of, I found that vector fill tool and I filled it in red to show I'm deleting this one. And I did that process a few times. I also found that one of the B's that was brought in using Adobe Capture and the way that it was smoothed, it turned out slightly more like how I wanted it for some reason, and the other one had a funny little bump. So I also did the same process where I copied the one B that I liked and I replaced the other B that I didn't like. So I was still continuing to go back to the E and refine it a little bit, especially to make sure that it matched. I had some very sharp edges on the E that I originally was tweaking, and I realized I have all these rounded edges on all these other letters. I kind of wanted to match that look. I also realized that the bottom of the E was thinner than all the other letters, especially looking at the S right next to it. So here I started messing around with selecting various parts of items in the vector. So I took the S, I chopped part of it off, and I put it on top of the E to use that as kind of a starting point for the S. So unfortunately, I am redoing or covering up all of the work that I originally did with the E, but it's all part of the learning process, I think. So I'm just kind of smoothing out, making sure that that looks natural enough. And then I figured out how to copy those parts and merge them back together into one E. And then I'm going to use a similar process to fix the S. So what I ended up doing on the E and the S was I used parts of those letters to edit. I put it on top of other parts of the letter, and then I was able to like merge them back together. If you asked me to do this again now, I don't think I would be able to. But at the time when I was in this zone, I was really starting to figure out some of the tools. Now, I still think I'm very much a beginner. There's so much I'm sure that I did wrong or that there's a better way to do it. But I'm pretty happy with just the overall learning process. It was pretty fun. And one of my key takeaways from this process was, it took a lot longer than I thought, hence my camera died again. And I really had this moment of, what's good enough. So I call myself a recovering perfectionist. I don't know if you've heard that term before, but I really like it.
And I think that it's really important to know when is good enough. And for me, I did want to go through this process. I did want to make my logo as good as I could as a vector, but I also didn't want to fight the battle of editing all of the rounded corners to be square and some of those small things because you know what? This is probably good enough. And same with when I've been making these videos. I'm really trying to stick to my goal of posting a video every other week or 2 times a month. And I've been doing it so far, but editing videos is way more time consuming than I thought. So I've really had to adjust my expectations, and I want to be proud of what I put out, but I also want to stick to what's realistic and, again, knowing what is good enough.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this for my first time using a vector-based graphic design interface and trying to just achieve my goal of cleaning up my logo and getting it to be in a vector format. I definitely, accomplished everything I set out to, and I feel like I learned a lot about just how difficult it is to use those kind of vector softwares if you haven't before. I have much more respect for graphic designers out there. It's definitely a skill set, just above and beyond being able to draw, to be able to draw and to use those technologies to complement your drawing skills and, use the technology to your advantage. I'm in awe. There's a lot to that. I'm sure I only barely scratched the surface. Sorry again about the camera issues. I keep running into this limit where, I set my camera there to record a video. It takes me some time sometimes to get into it, and then once I get into the swing of things, I get into the flow. I don't really think about how long it's been since I turned on the camera, and it keeps shutting off on me. So apologies for the second half of the video, but I'm gonna try to keep getting better and avoiding that happening in the future. And thanks so much for watching today's video. If you made it to the end, really appreciate you being here, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care.